Welcome back to the My Slice of Life podcast with me, Sharon O'Neill. And if you are new to this podcast, this is where I bring you topics that I find fascinating. And if you go through my previous episodes, you'll find everything from being prepared for life events, supernatural, movie choices, how to be better at productivity, mysteries, and much, much more. Now I'm focusing more on what I'm actually doing day to day, and currently I'm in the garden and the allotment a lot. So this week's episode is a tour around the allotment for June. What I'm growing, what's working, what isn't, and what's still to be done. And sadly, there's still quite a list, but that's the way gardening goes. There's loads more information and links in the description for you, but here, right now, I'm going to begin by telling you about the squash. And I can start off by honestly saying, I've just sown too many. I sow too many of pretty much everything because I am skilled in the art of plant killing. Well, seedling killing mainly. I don't know how it happens. I'm not always aware of what I've done wrong, but because I know I have this tendency, and I've been gardening quite a long time now, and I know that nothing ever goes perfect. Nothing goes the way you think it's going to. So I really do err on the side of caution, and I oversow everything. So I've got too many squash, but it's not just that. I have sown courgettes. I've also sown marrows, which is basically just large courgettes. I don't know. I never do great with them. I think I've only managed to grow one before, and then it was a bit of a job even deciding what I was going to make with it. It wasn't that great. It was okay. I just like the thought of growing all these different things. So I've got them. And I always sow, for pumpkins, I always sow the Atlantic Giant. Now, I did a competition one year with Dearest Son, and mine was about £34. His was about £55. They were pretty big, so I just like the idea of seeing how big can we get one to grow. And I don't do that thing where, you know, the experts will take off all the extras so they've only got one. I don't do that. I just think if you're going to grow me a pumpkin, I'll take whatever you give me. So I've got the Atlantic Giant, but I've also got a couple of something called Saint Martin. I got it out of Lidl's actually. You know, you walk in and they've got the seeds straight at the door, and I just go, oh, what have I not grown? I'll take a packet of them. They were like 39 pence or something ridiculous, but some of them are growing. And this year I've got a Turk's turban growing. I think there's one, there could be more. This is the other problem I have. I can't even remember because sometimes the labels wash clear and I'm not sure what they are. So I know I've got at least one Turk's turban. And I've got one Uchiki Kuri, which I've actually planted on the plot up beside the beans so it's a climber, needs something to climb up. So I've put it there where it can climb up the plastic netting that I've put up for the beans, so it should be quite happy there. But another thing that I've grown, and I love it. Have you ever heard of tromboncino? I'm sure that's how you say it. It's a type of courgette, but if you let it climb up something, I've actually got one I'm letting hang down, so I'm hoping this will work the same, but they grow really long, and if you let them, trail along the ground, they actually grow in a curve shape. Now, what I didn't know, and they get big, I mean, you're talking like 3 feet long, these things. Brilliant, brilliant plant. If you've got even like little kids, get them growing this because they'll love watching it grow. And yes, I found out last year, and I've been growing them a couple of years, and I only found out last year that if I leave it on the plant, instead of picking it to use it as a courgette, if I leave it on the plant, it will go a kind of orangey browny colour, and I can use it as a squash, like a pumpkin. So I love that. I love plants you can do more than one thing with. So I can either have it as a courgette, or later on I could have it as a kind of, pumpkin squash sort of thing. They aren't all planted out yet. They probably should be. In the back garden I've got quite a few in large pots because I don't really have the space to put them out. And in the plot I'm putting them everywhere I can find a space. Now I put out about 3 yesterday, and I've still got some in pots. And I'm leaving the 2 Atlantic giant pumpkins because they're going to be going into the compost bin. We're in the process of emptying the compost bin contents. I've got 2 wooden ones, so I'm emptying one into the other one so we can start a new pile. But when I get it all in, I'm going to plant the pumpkins in. I really should have done it by now, but I haven't. So that's the squash. When it comes to the brassicas, yet again I've ran out of room. I know I did it again. I've sown too many kohlrabi, which is weird because I only started growing it last year for the first time. And I like it. I didn't realise I liked it this much. But I tell you what I found, I've got 2 kinds. One is a white one and one is a purple one. And I planted them out. And actually I did that a while ago and I put the hoops in and they were squint and all that. There is actually a video showing you how squint they are, by the way. But I found out the other night when I was up checking them and watching them that the slugs seem to like the white ones more than the purple ones. And I made a comment about that on my YouTube video and someone else came along, Ali from My Rusty Garden, actually, brilliant channel, really funny, I like Ali, she's in Canada. But she said she's found that as well, that her purple veg isn't getting eaten as much as the other stuff. So, is there something about the colour purple that these slugs and snails don't like? Something to think about. But I do have a few cauliflower growing, fingers crossed, and I'm saying that because I normally can get cauliflower to quite a good size and then it just does nothing. Literally does nothing. So I'm crossing my fingers. And I've got as well a couple of broccoli, or calabrese really, and I think that's what they are. I'll need to check. I'm sure I saw the little green thing starting in the middle. But the problem I have is I start by putting them in certain places. You know, I'll have this bit for the broccoli, this bit for the cauliflower and so on. But then when I'm running out of room and I find another tray of plants, I'm just shoving them in anywhere. And then of course the labels have all washed clean, so it's a bit of a treasure hunt sort of thing when they do start growing. And I like that. I do quite like that. And I got quite a lot of new seeds for this year. Oh, and I did get them from Budget Seeds. Now, if you are in the UK, you can as well, budgetseeds.co.uk. And if you use my code SO'Neill10, you'll get 10% off. There is a link in the description and that's for UK listeners. But moving on, we're going to go on to the peas and beans. And that bay is looking really good. Very green. In just a couple of weeks it's just going whoosh. But I am a little worried. The peas are growing well. They're looking strong and I'm happy with them. But I'm not really seeing flowers. And I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't I be seeing flowers by now? Is this a late flowering season? Does anybody know? Because I really thought I would have flowers on them all by now. But I also planted in some runner beans and French beans, and they've survived, but they're not growing very much. For as much, I've kind of got the opposite problem to the peas, where the peas are growing, but I'm not getting flowers. These ones don't seem to be growing, and I think, believe it or not, I think their growth has been stunted by colder weather we're having. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had a few days warm, and we've had even a couple that were hot, but we've also had a lot of cold wind, and I really think that's kind of pushed them back a bit. And I keep seeing and hearing about people talking about this heat wave, and they're roasting, and the YouTube gardeners I watch are all down south from me. I could slap every one of them because, I mean, we're, like I say, quite warm today, but not hot enough for these beans to thrive, and I want them to thrive. Again, keep your fingers crossed for me that we get some decent weather, because I'm recording this end of June, so really should be starting to see a bit more growth, I think. And moving on, the potatoes, I was kind of pleased until I had a close look. I planted Charlotte as my second earlies, and I was up visiting last night, having a look around and watering, and I've been really careful with my watering with the potatoes, trying to water round the plant, not on the leaves, watering in the channels between the plants. I had to pull one out. It looked like it was just pure blight. Pure blight. And even though they're earlies, when I pulled out the potatoes, they were tiny and rubbish. And I planted them in good time. And that is a bay that was covered in manure, so there's no reason for them to not be growing well. Most of the other ones look okay. The main crop is Desiree. I'm never sure how to pronounce that. And they always grow really well for me there. But one of them hasn't shown at all, and one of them is only showing a little bit. So I am a little concerned. Now I did use homegrown seed potatoes this year for the whole bay, which I've never done before, and it's a bit of a gamble. It saved me money, but is it going to save me in the long run? I don't know. I might have to actually just buy seeds potatoes next year, and if I do, I will be buying them from Budget Seeds because they sell them. I was just thinking, I'll try it and try and save a few quid, but I don't think it's going to pay off. Who knows? Fingers crossed on that one. Oh, fingers crossed for most of these, isn't it? Oh, God. Now, my last big bay is mainly for roots, but it is a bit of a mix. And one of the rows there has got beetroot and onions in it, which has got pretty good growth on them, I would say. Some of the beetroot are just about getting ready to come out, so are some of the onions, so I'm pleased with that. Now, I put seaweed on that bay, and I did have a couple of turnips in there. I sowed a few turnip seeds, but they bolted. I couldn't even I think I got one turnip out, and it was rotten. It was horrible. There was some bug in it. But the rest of them just bolted. That must have been a couple of days with hot weather, and turnip apparently can't cope with it. Now with my carrots, when you're putting your netting up and you put up your blue hoops, well, I sewed the first space between the first blue hoops, if you know what I mean, and I put top weight in them. That's what it's called, top weight. And I really took my time to sew those ones, so I didn't have to thin them out, and they have come up brilliantly. And I also surrounded them with onions, and I know they say, plant your onions round your carrots, it'll confuse the carrot root fly. I'll get it out eventually. I've never really found that to be the case, but I do it anyway because I just think it's a good use of space. And I've just sown some Autumn King in the other two bits of that, so that whole line is now fully sown as well. I wasn't quite so careful when I was sowing them, more of a sprinkle, if I'm honest, but Autumn King, I probably will need to thin them out. Now the parsnips, they were a no-show, but I think there were two things that I did wrong which have caused that to happen. I don't think it's the seed, because I let it dry out, and that's a big no-no, obviously, if you're putting seeds in. That's a big no-no. And it was also covered in weeds, and I left that bay too long until I got to it to weed it. You're always, I'll get to it, and I was always getting distracted by other things, and I let them dry out. So, my fault, if I'm honest. But then I thought, okay, I don't need so much space for the parsnips, so I've put some kale in. Where I was going to do all parsnip, I've halved it. I needed somewhere for the kale. Like I told you, I've oversown. I've still got 2 plants, I think, to find a home for when it comes to kale. So I've put them in, and I redid my parsnip seeds and gave them a really good soak. So I'm hoping that's that taken care of. And at the other end of that, I've got just some spring onions and turnips at the end of that bay. I was looking for things that would grow quickly, and I could just take them out, and then I'll have space, hopefully, to put in a pumpkin or another courgette or whatever, because I know I'm going to have another one there. Or even another kale, something. So that's all the 4 main bays, pretty much fully sown or planted up. Now the gaps in the potatoes, like I said, I have just plugged the gaps with squash and courgettes, things like that. So, not a disaster. I mean, potatoes, I like growing potatoes. I like, having that wee treasure hunt to see how many you get. Is it the end of the world if they don't all show? No, because I love growing squash as well, so that's okay. But I'm going to move on to the fruit bit now, because this has been a fantastic year for our strawberries. I don't know how yours are doing if you're growing them. The only issue I have with the strawberry bay, we've got one big one, and it's strawberries with, there's 2 blueberry bushes, a red currant and a gooseberry bush. Now, as I'm talking, if you're on YouTube, I'll be putting up some video and photos of various parts of the plot, so you'll be able to see the places that I'm talking about. But the issue with the strawberry patch is this weed called spreading sorrel. And I think I mentioned this. It's driving me nuts. It is driving me insane because we had cleared it. Now, to fully get rid of it, I was told, just keep attacking it. And we have been. And there was one area I had that really was covered in it, and I can see the light there. So I'm trying not to get disheartened with it. I know if I keep going, we will get on top of it. But at the moment, it's running away from me. So I need to attack that. The actual strawberries themselves have been growing fantastic, despite being smothered by this horrible weed. Satan's weed, I call them. But the blueberries, I have one older blueberry bush, and it seems to crop brilliantly one year and then take the next year off. And that's what's happened this year. I got a great crop off it last year, and this year, he's tired, he's not doing anything. Although I did prune it, I wonder if I've pruned it wrong. See, my pruning again. Awful. But the other bush is doing fine, so, and it's younger, so maybe it is just that. The red currants are starting to show, and the one job with red currants that I always forget is summer pruning. And I don't know if you grow red currants. Do you summer prune your ones? Because I know it puts on a lot of growth, and you're supposed to cut the new growth back, is it by about 1/3 or something, which also helps with harvesting the red currants, so you can try and get them before the birds do. Good luck with that. I'm going to have to look up the pruning technique for that, because I do it every year and I'm looking it up. I'm just not getting to grips with it at all. And I'm saying that about the pruning because I've had a pruning disaster this year, to be honest. We have got 5 supposed to be patio fruit trees in the back garden. Now, I got the patio ones. I thought I'll grow them in tubs or I can grow them in the ground. They won't get too big. But the cherry tree and the plum tree get too big. And I had a go at pruning them, and I cut them right back because I had a good look at them. Cherry tree, I think, couldn't see one cherry. Nothing. There were flowers earlier on, but I don't know what happened. There was nothing. Not even that I could say, oh, the birds got them. There was nothing for the birds either. It was crap. And I got really annoyed. I went, right, I'm just going to prune you. It was growing too big. I've heard you get these thin little shoots sprouting out, and they call them water shoots. There was loads of them. I've hacked the hell out of it. The plum tree, I think we've got 2 plums on it. And again, it had flowers all over it. Where are they? Is it just a lack of pollinators this year or something? I don't know. It was also getting very tall and attacking me every time I went to the washing line, so I've hacked the hell out of it as well. The weird thing is, it's supposed to be black amber, which, as you can imagine, are dark fruits and a decent size. What I'm getting are tiny and yellow. And I contacted the company. It wasn't Budget Seeds, by the way. This was before I found out about them. I contacted the company to ask them, what is it you've given me? Because it's not black amber. You know what they said? Don't know. We haven't sold yellow plum trees for years. Don't know what you have. I'm thinking, thanks very much. I spent a fortune for these bloody trees and I don't know what I've got. Anyway, yellow plums. If you've any idea what's happened to my plums, do let me know. Now, I just want to have a quick word with you about some of the herbs I'm growing because, I need to put in a disclaimer here. I'm not a herbalist. I'm not an expert in herbs at all. I grow them for family use only. Okay? Just covering my arse here. But that is what I do. And this year, for the first year, properly, I'm growing mullein. And I've got one of them and it's really big. I've never had it grow like this. Like I said properly because I think last year I had a tiny version, but this year it's taken off. And I want you to grow it because I heard you can use the leaves for chest conditions, which we all have in this house, but especially in the winter, for coughs or if my asthma gets a bit worse, I can make a tea, I can make a tincture, and the flowers can be infused in olive oil for earache, which dearest son sometimes gets problems with his ears, so I thought, well, that's brilliant. Again, 2 things from the one plant, can't go wrong. I've also got chamomile, which seemed like a really good idea at the time, and it's kind of popping up everywhere, so I'm going to have to try and control that a bit. Yarrow, again, I wanted to grow that because I heard it's really good as a styptic. is that the right word, to stop bleeding, but I might have put out too much because I didn't realise how big it would get. I had a little sage plant growing in the garden in a pot, and it was miserable, poor wee soul. So I put him out, wasn't it? Yeah, I put him out in the plot, and he's looking much happier now. I love sage, I love cooking with sage, but it's apparently very good for sore throats, so another one that I will be using. And I've got thyme, lemon balm, which is a beast of a plant. Another one, when I put it in the ground, not a pot, didn't realise just how big it would grow and how much it would spread and how much I would be finding it all over the plot thanks to its flowers and seeds. I've also got oregano or marjoram, I'm not sure which one it is, I don't really know what the difference is. Lavender, big lavender plants which I love, and calendula. Don't have too many calendula on the plot. Now, I took a lot of them out because that thing self-seeds like a nightmare. In the back garden, I've got loads of them and I let them self-seed. And I'll actually, if I remember, I'll take a picture to put in here, even though we're talking about the allotment, but I'll show you the garden picture because I love it. You come out our back garden, you're just seeing bins. I put the herbs there, trying to brighten it up, but it's kind of grotty. But I can ignore that by looking at the calendula, and it's so bright and orange and they're gorgeous, and the bees have been all over them this week. It's been fantastic. Moving on to the polytunnel on the plot, I've just finished planting it up with cordon tomatoes. So yeah, I'm growing the cherry tomatoes at home, although I do have a couple of the larger tomato plants in the home polytunnel. It's in the back garden. I possibly did too many tomato plants, but that's okay because in the past, I've got to be honest, I haven't done well with tomatoes. I think it's because I haven't kept up with watering, and this year I am trying so hard to keep up with everything, so I think it's going to go well. But the polytunnel up at the plot, the side of it was really overgrown with nettles and willow herb mainly, but they were kind of coming, some of them from the plot behind, which also has raspberries and, I don't know, some sort of climbing plant, which looks nice, but it's hanging over, and it was the weeds that were getting to me, and I'm calling nettles weeds on this occasion because I don't want them there. The problem was they were starting to grow under the cover and pop up inside the polytunnel, so the person behind me has planted raspberries right up to the fence, so their raspberries are popping up in the polytunnel, and so were the nettles. So I really had to do something, so I've cut back all the rubbish from the side, and I put salt and vinegar down to try and kill off what little bit was left, and put down a blue sheet over the top to try and smother it. Oh, I tell you what else I had was creeping buttercup. That's another one. That's a nightmare of a plant. Creeping buttercup. It looks nice until you realise it's going to take over your whole garden. So yeah, there were the nettles, the creeping buttercup and the raspberries, all spreaders, all right at the side of the polytunnel and all coming into the polytunnel. So we've put the plastic over it, hope that's going to take care of it. Problem is now, I haven't seen my red chopper things since we did that, so I think it's got caught up underneath the blue sheet, so I'm going to take it off and try and find them. And one issue about the polytunnel, which I wasn't too happy about, is it was full of ants. They were everywhere, just everywhere, and they seem to be all over the plot this year. I mean, we have a very, very healthy ant population this year. They're everywhere. So I am hoping that the birds will come in and take care of that, or something will. Fingers crossed for that as well. The one other thing that I'm growing on the plot is flowers. My word for the plot this year, and I don't normally do this word for the year, but for the plot, it helps me focus. And this year my word was interest, because I wanted it to be wherever I looked, there was something of interest to look at. And I've planted out loads of flowers, whether it's seeds or little seedlings I've put out, just mainly the basic ones, but I love them. So I've got nasturtiums, sweet peas, sunflowers, cosmos, cornflower, and a mystery thing from the garden. And it is actually a mystery. I found a pack of seeds in my box, which was literally labelled mystery. That's all it says on it. It's like mystery seed. For some reason, there was a plant I liked the look of. It went to seed. I took the seeds, put them in there, forgot what it was, and just put mystery plant from the garden on the packet. So that's what it is. So if they grow, I'll find out what it is this year. So that's what I'm growing. And I did say there's still a lot to be done. And one of the first jobs that I really want to get done is the shed. It's the shed we had when we first got the plot. And it's looking a bit tatty, but I want it cleaned out and I want the inside painted to brighten it up. And hopefully get rid of any extras that might have made it its home, if you know what I'm saying, because I'm not too keen on going in there at the moment, so I want that clean. I've also got a big wooden seat which is now broken, it's fallen apart, too weathered, fell apart, but I've got a great big, I think it's like a ton bag in where the seat used to be, which we're slowly filling with manure, so that's not finished. All the paths need to be weeded and wood chipped. Again, yes, it feels like I'm doing it every 10 minutes. Just outside the plot we've got a little strip which does get very weedy, and at the moment it's poppy central for the first half. Now I have tackled the second part, chopped down a bit, I've salt and vinegared all over that. The poppies I didn't want to salt and vinegar, so the minute they're done I'm going to rip them out. And then there's the weeds, and I am trying so hard, like I said, to keep on top of them, and in some places I think I'm doing okay, but there are places that I just feel like I'm failing. And the three worst ones are that spreading sorrel, the spreading buttercup and couch grass. They are nightmares. I think I can cope with all the annuals, I can cope with anything else, but those three are driving me insane. But I'm not giving up. If you know anything about me, you'll know I do not give up easily, so that is going to be tackled. Hopefully this weekend, actually, I'm going to go back up and we'll see if we can really make a good dent on the weeds, especially in the strawberry patch, because that's the worst part at the moment. The rest is pretty much looking okay, but that area needs to be done. And that pretty much concludes your allotment roundup for June. It is a really busy time of year for us gardeners, isn't it? And I would love to hear what you're growing in your garden, or your plot if you have one, or your homestead, whatever you have. What are you growing? What's working well for you? Or maybe you have some great gardening advice that you could share with the rest of us. Drop a wee comment and let us all know what you've got, or head over to the Discord channel. There is the link in the description. If you don't fancy doing it publicly, you could always drop me a wee email and I'll read it out for you if you'd rather do that. Other than that, don't forget to subscribe and join me next week for another episode of the My Slice of Life podcast. But until then, you take care of your wee self.